Hi everyone. Today we are starting with a new chapter, chapter 16. In this chapter we are tackling infinitives, infinitive phrases, and we are studying adjectival clauses. This chapter will be divided into two parts. In this part, I'm focusing on infinitives and infinitive phrases. In this presentation, I will talk about what the meaning of infinitives, what is an infinitive phrase, then I will move to the functions of infinitive phrase. And here you can see that there are 5 functions for infinitive phrase: subject, displaced subject, direct object, object in compound sentences. They can function also as modifiers, and how they come or when we insert them in reported speech. Fine, let's talk about the meaning or what is an infinitive. As you know that an infinitive is two, or it consists of two plus the verb, and this verb is usually in the base form. Okay, let's use the highlighter. This verb is usually in the base form. Okay. What is the function of an infinitive? Usually the infinitive limits the meaning of the word that they follow. For example, I go to school to study. So it gives a limitation that my going to school is only for studying. Alright? I eat to survive. So it limits the purpose behind eating. Okay, as you know that, as I have just said, that it consists of two and the verb in the base form. However, this verb is not the main verb in the sentence. For example, when you say that I go to school to study study is not the main verb in the sentence. Go is the main verb in this sentence. That's why even though it has a verb, it never be in the main verb position. Okay? And here we will move, and this will, be developed into infinitive phrase. In some instances, an infinitive can have a subject or an object or complement. For example, when you say to play, this is just a bare infinitive. To plus the simple form of the verb. For everyone to play, that is, to play is the infinitive, and for everyone, here it came with the subject. To play football is my, for example, ambition. To play football is my hobby. This is an infinitive which is followed by an object. And then we have to play in the neighborhood. This is with a complement. Okay, this is a preposition phrase. Now we can have all of them coming all together for everyone to play football in the neighborhood. Okay, and here this brings me to infinitive phrase. Infinitive phrase when the infinitive comes with subject or with object or with complement. For everyone to play in the neighborhood. This is the infinitive phrase. This is all an infinitive phrase. We don't have to play only. No, it is accompanied by other tools. Now, the functions which can be used by the infinitive phrase or the infinitive phrase can function the following. It can function as a subject, as I have just said. Displaced subject, we'll see what's a displaced subject shortly. It can function as a direct object, object in compound sentence, modifiers, and the reported speech. Let's focus or let's study them one by one. The first function, usually in statements, and here look carefully students, it's not in questions, only in affirmative sentences. An infinitive can fill the subject position, okay? And this subject or the infinitive phrase can be introduced by for. And the verb which follows the infinitive phrase is in the S form. What's that? Let's have a look. In the first case, I'm going to look for the infinitive. My infinitive is to work. Okay? And I'm going to look for the main verb. This is the main verb. My sentence, if I don't, this is all the subject. The subject all is for everyone to work in a foreign country demands an interview. Or everything that precedes the main verb is the subject. Now, if I want to focus on this phrase, for everyone to work in a foreign country, this is the infinitive phrase. And this infinitive phrase has a subject, and as I have just said, that this subject is preceded by for. Okay? And this is the complement of the infinitive phrase. As I said, that the verb is accompanied by S, the third person singular S. Okay, I hope this is clear. This is for everyone to work in a foreign country is an infinitive phrase, and this infinitive phrase occupies the subject position. Okay, this infinitive phrase has a subject and a complement. The subject is for everyone, and the complement is in a foreign country. Next, we have displayed subject. What do we mean by displayed subject? From its meaning, displaced, it means that you change the position or you change the place of something. Let's see, when do we change the position of an infinitive? The infinitive phrase can be after the verb when the sentence starts with anticipatory it. Okay, anticipatory it, sometimes when you want to anticipate something, we start our sentence using it. For example, it is hard to study English. This is called anticipatory it, and it occupies the subject position. In this case, if we have anticipatory it, the subject, which is the infinitive, usually comes after the verb. Where is the verb? My verb is requires. Okay? Effort is the complement. Where is my subject? My subject is the whole phrase here. To succeed in the exam. To succeed is the infinitive, and the exam is the complement of the infinitive. They both are the subject which change its position coming after the main verb. Why did it come after the verb? Because we have anticipatory it that came into in the subject position. This is the first thing. The second case is that even though it's still in the displaced subject position, but sometimes the subject of the infinitive phrase is a pronoun. For example, this is the subject, me, of the infinitive phrase. Okay? And if you see, even though it is a subject of the infinitive phrase, and it's a pronoun, the form of this subject is the object form. as we know that if it were pronoun and it were in the subject form, it will be I, he, she, it, and however it's a subject here, but this pronoun is in the object form. In the other case, it's preceded by for. Okay, you can listen to my explanation again and again so you can understand it. Briefly, the subject or displaced subject, the infinitive comes in the displaced subject position when the sentence starts with the anticipatory it, and in this case it comes after the verb. And the second case is that when this infinitive has a subject and this subject is a pronoun, it will be in the object form, and usually it's preceded by for. Fine. Sometimes the infinitive or the infinitive phrase come in the direct object position. When the subject of the infinitive is the same as the subject of the sentence, this subject will not be repeated. What it means? Okay, again, if the subject, as we said that the infinitive phrase has a subject, if the subject of the infinitive is the same as the subject of the sentence, okay, let's remember that the infinitive comes in the position of direct object, okay, and as we said, it's an infinitive phrase which has a subject, and this subject is the same of the subject of the main sentence or of the whole sentence. We will see that this subject is not repeated. Let's see the following sentence. Students, okay, my subject is students, want to understand their assignment. This is the subject of the sentence, students. Want is the verb. My object is the whole sentence, to understand their assignment. This is the whole sentence. Okay, if I look at the object, which is the infinitive, okay, to understand is the infinitive. Their assignment is the object of the infinitive. Does this have a subject? Does this infinitive phrase have a subject? No, it doesn't. Why? Because the subject of this infinitive is the same of the subject, students. Yani students refer to themselves when they say that they are studying their assignment. Okay, we'll see the difference here if we tackle a different sentence. If the subject of the infinitive is different from the subject of the sentence, this subject will appear before the infinitive. For example, teachers, this is the subject, they want us to study science. First of all, in this sentence, the subject is teachers, want is the main verb, my object is us to study science, this is whole object. Fine. الobject مالتي here is the infinitive phrase, and this infinitive phrase has subject, and in this case the subject, and it has an object and the infinitive normally. But if you notice here that this subject as, does it refer to the same person? Teachers, they are our teachers, and they want us, they are referring to different people. Okay, that's why you see that this subject is mentioned here in this sentence, and something else. And if this subject was a pronoun, it will be in the object form. It will be in the object form, which means us, him, her. Okay? I hope this is clear. For example, in the previous sentence, students want to understand their assignment. Students want themselves to understand their assignment, which means that they want something from themselves. It's the same subject. But when teachers want us, they want somebody else. Okay, they don't want themselves to study science. They want somebody else to study science. Now we have two groups of verbs. You can see that this picture is taken from your textbook. We have two groups of verbs and these verbs that take object, infinitives as object. We can see that some of them, the subject of the infinitive object is the same as the subject of the sentence. Just like in my previous sentence, students want to study hard. And here we have this list, students try to succeed. Try is one of the verbs which has subject that the same subject of the infinitive. Students try to succeed. Who wants to succeed? It's the students. In this case, to succeed, does it have a subject? Why does it have a subject? Because its subject is the same of the subject of the main sentence. For example, if we use agree, okay, teachers agree to meet, okay, or learn. Children agree to learn at school. The second pattern is that sometimes the subject of the infinitive, as I said, is different from the subject of the sentence. For example, their father encouraged them. Them is the subject of the infinitive, encourages them to study. And this group of verbs which has a subject for its own and a subject for the infinitive itself. And here we have this list. Some of them have the two pattern, which means that they can either come with the same subject for the infinitive and for themselves, and for different subject. The next position or the next function for the infinitive is, if you remember last time when we talked about combining two sentences, and these two sentences are both independent clauses, and sometimes we combine them using a conjunction. Okay? However, if these two sentences, these two independent sentences, they are combined and they both have infinitive, okay? And they both have the same infinitive, and they both have the infinitive in the object position. So let's see, there are certain conditions here. These two combined, I'm saying it again, these two sentences both have infinitive, and this infinitive is the same. This infinitive in the object position. In this case, you will not repeat this infinitive. You will just use to instead. Let's see. Let's have a long sentences. I have two simple sentences here. Their parents urge them to study hard. What is my object? Urge is the main verb. My object, them to study hard. This is my object. Okay? This might not be clear. Let me use a different color. Then to study hard. This is the object. Okay? Their parents can't force them to study hard. This is the object in this sentence as well. Now I want to combine both of them. Their parents urge them to study hard, we keep the first sentence as it is, okay? But, this is my conjunction, they refers to their parents again, can't force them to. Now, I didn't repeat, they can't force them to study hard. I didn't repeat this. I didn't repeat them to study hard. I just said they can't force them to. And this to indicates that we have the same object of the first sentence. As I said, if you find it that it's not clear, just come back to my explanation. Right. The next function is sometimes infinitives can come as modifiers. You remember in our last chapter we talked about modifiers, which are the words that modify other words. And these modifiers are of two types. Some of them are post modifiers and some of them are pre-modifiers. When I say pre-modifiers, it means that they come before the word that they modify. And when I say this is post modifier, it means it comes after the word that they modify. Now we are talking about infinitives. And the infinitives sometimes, and by the way, they are post modifiers here. Infinitives can post modify nouns. For example, Nani has a jumper to knit. To knit here, it is post modifying what? The noun jumper. To knit is my infinitive, and it is post modifying the word jumper. Next, we have modifiers of adjectives and adverbs. Let's see. You need to search carefully to find your mobile. Carefully is my adverb, okay? And my infinitive is to find your mobile. Now, to find the infinitive, it is modifying the adverb. Let's see the other sentence. Children are lazy to search for their mobiles. Lazy is the adjective, and the infinitive here is to search, which is modifying lazy. Next, infinitives can modify verbs. Many people travel to explore. Where is the verb? Travel. To explore is the infinitive, which is describing why people travel to explore. People eat to survive. Eat is the verb. To survive is modifying the verb. We go to school, go to study. Okay, why do I go? To study. And the next case is modifiers of compound indefinite. Indefinite compound are the words like nothing, everything, something, and sometimes they are followed by an infinitive. I have nothing to declare. Nothing is the compound infinitive. Indefinite. Sorry, I keep saying infinitive because this subject is about infinitives. Okay, I have nothing to declare. Nothing is the compound indefinite, and to declare is the infinitive. Okay, I have something to show you. I have, or I can say, I have nothing to talk about. I have everything to dream of. Okay, sometimes in certain questions and phrases, if our object has a question word, and this object is usually modified by an infinitive. Let's say it again. If my object of the sentence has a question word, This question word or this this is often modified by an infinitive. Let's see. My friends don't know how to contact me. My friends is the subject. Don't know is the verb. How to contact me? This is all in the object position. Okay? You remember last time when we said that if it's a noun clause. But how? You see that this is object. This is the object, and it has a question word. What's the question word here? Is how. And usually they say it is modified by uh, an infinitive. The next case is sometimes, and by the way, this is related to it, when verbs they require indirect object. This indirect object is the subject of the infinitive phrase. For example, because showed, he showed me. Because showed needs an indirect object. He showed me how to install the program. Showed is one of the verbs that demands or requires an object or indirect object. He showed me how to install the program. This will all be the object position. Me is the indirect object. And by the way, here, me is the subject of the infinitive phrase. Again, it is the subject of the infinitive phrase, and at the same time, it's the indirect object of the main verb. I hope this is clear. Let's move now to the infinitives in reported speech. If the direct speech is an imperative, I mean, say, when I say an imperative, it is a command, it's an order, okay? If the direct occultation has an imperative or is an imperative, yes, I mean, for example, when you order somebody to do something and you want to change it into indirect speech, okay? In this case, you will use the infinitive when you change it into indirect speech. For example, George said to his sister, don't use my notebook. And I want to change it now into indirect speech. George asked his sister not to use his desk or not to use his notebook. You see that? I used asked instead, and because we have don't, we just put not and the infinitive, not to use his notebook. This sentence is in the negative case. Let's see the other sentence. George said, use yours instead. George advised his sister. You can also say George said to his sister to use, okay, to use, or George ordered his sister to use hers instead. Look here, we said hers instead of yours. These are the slight changes that we made when we changed this direct speech, which is an order, into indirect speech. Okay? We can keep the same verb as it is. George said to his sister to use hers instead. Alright? If sometimes you get confused and you don't know which verb to use. That's all for today, and it covers we covered here infinitives, the infinitive phrase, the functions of infinitive phrase. I hope this is clear, and thank you very much.